I'm here today with Rolf Strauch, who is a member of the management board at the European Stability Mechanism. Rolf, debt to GDP remains at unsustainable levels in many Eurozone countries. What are your top concerns in terms of the way some European nations are dealing with their debt issues?
Yeah, hello, thank you. Debt is a very serious issue, evidently, and in the European context is taken very seriously. It's very also important for our operations. First point to consider is that for our operations, debt for us to support a country, debt has to be sustainable per se. Otherwise, we cannot do it. There was one case where this was in question. This was in Greece. Therefore, before entering the program, there was a debt restructuring, and then we came in. Then one must take into account that there part of our program setup is policy conditionality, and this is also in order to enhance debt sustainability, and must say that has worked in a number of cases. And then the final point is that I think it's not warranted to just look at debt levels, so looking at the Greek debt level or for other countries and say it's not sustainable. I think with our lending we have indeed set new parameters. We do very long-term lending at very affordable rates, and as a result of that the payment profile of a country is such that a high debt level doesn't lead to the fact that debt couldn't be served. Say again, taking the example of Greece, our loans run for more than 30 years. For the first 10 years we have shifted the interest payments backward, so the country doesn't need to pay interest on a large part of that debt. This makes it very viable for a country and very sustainable, and actually also opens the country then the possibility to go back to the market. So from that perspective it is a very serious issue, but we are dealing with it in our context.
Right. Now you've mentioned that only 10% of the lending capacity of the ESM has been used. Given where we are in the so-called Euro crisis, is all of that lending capacity likely to be used, or could it be used to help stimulate growth rather than just as a financial backstop?
Where we currently stand, you're right that most of the capacity of the ESM has not been tapped so far. So to be more precise or more comprehensive, the overall firewall of the euro area with the temporary mechanism, the EFSF, and the permanent mechanism altogether is $1 trillion US dollar. From that, the portion that has been used by the temporary mechanism has been drawn, but the permanent mechanism, the ESM, is only tapped to a small amount, and that came through the programs of Cyprus and Spain. I can say that the programs so far indeed have been very successful. So the program for Ireland has been completed, the program for Spain was completed. The longest running program at this stage is the program for Cyprus, which is relatively small. That will run till 2016. We will see what happens with the programs of Portugal and Greece that are expected or that will end in the course of this year, the next one for Portugal. So far we are very optimistic that either no new money will be used for those countries, or limited amounts if there would be a follow-up program. From that perspective, yes, I expect that a large volume of ESM capacity will not immediately be tapped and will not immediately be used. Having said this, one must also acknowledge that ESM is not per se a development bank mechanism. There is a division of labor in Europe. You have the European Investment Bank that has more the function of a development bank or a growth financing institutions, and they do this, and the European policymakers have taken initiatives in this respect. So from that perspective, the mandate of the ESM as a backstop is a very definitive mandate, and we will have to stick to that role, and we cannot do overall growth financing. Our contribution is providing liquidity and giving countries the time to reform and by reforming, going back to a growth path, but not by direct growth financing, say in infrastructure projects.
Right. Thank you, Rolf. That was Rolf Strauch of the ESM, and I'm Jane Sell for The Street.